So you can see here that we're dealing with the customer table from the Alpha Sports folder. And now I'm going to go here and save it, and I'll just call it, say, demo grid 2. And after I save it, you can see that it's not encoded. It still says Alpha Sports. So that means that when I publish this grid and run it, it is looking in a hard-coded location, C colon / Alpha Sports for this grid, and it doesn't make any difference what value is stored in the Alpha 5 application I file for path aliases, because this grid is not coded to use that alias. So if I were to publish to an ISP that's running my Alpha 5 application, if that ISP doesn't have a folder called C colon Alpha Sports with a table called Customer.dbf inside that location, this grid won't work when it's published. So let's see how you can now work around that issue. So what I'm going to do now is go back to my database, and I'm going to go to View Settings, and I'm going to add a new alias, and I'll just call it, say, my data, and my path here is C colon Alpha Sports. So we'll add a new alias now called my data. So now we're going to go ahead now, and let's go back to my grid, and I'll just make it dirty and then resave it. And now I'm going to go to XBasic, and what you can see now is that my grid is now encoded to use this alias my data, which is good now because we can now then specify this setting for my data in our web publishing profile. So when we go now to web projects and we go to profiles, when we go to the aliases tab right now, you'll see that my data is now defined as C colon Alpha Sports, and what I can do now is specify that when I publish this application to my ISP where my application is running, that instead of putting the data in C colon Alpha Sports, perhaps the data would be, say, in C colon let's say data root or something like that. In which case then on the server where I've published my application, the customer table would need to be in a folder called C colon data root, and if that in fact was the case, then everything would work correctly. So this ability to specify aliases allows you to make applications that are going to work on a server or on your local machine, even if the data files themselves are not always in the same location. Now the comments that I've made in this video apply to DBF files, but they also apply to accessed databases, MDB files. They apply to any situation where the database is accessed through the file system. They do not apply in situations where you're going through a SQL Server database or a MySQL database or any database that does not use a file system. So that would include Oracle as well as, say, Sybase, etc. So I hope you find this useful. Thank you very much.